After 6 years of a secret relationship, my girlfriend, the CEO, finally agreed to let me meet her parents. But then she stayed out all night. The next day, she sauntered into the office with a Hickey on her neck, accompanied by her old flame. They chatted as if no one else existed, completely ignoring me, her actual boyfriend. A colleague whispered, "Isn't that the new guy who just started a few days ago? He's already latched onto the CEO, just another kept pretty boy." Before I could say a word, my girlfriend, Victoria, snapped, "Ethan is a top graduate I personally recruited. If you lack the skills, don't resort to malicious gossip. I won't have anyone speaking ill of him." VP Davis, who knew about our relationship, leaned over and asked curiously, "Who's this guy? Aren't you Miss Vance's official boyfriend?" I gave a sardonic smile, not for much longer. VP Davis froze. Victoria had already walked over to me. "Your performance has been slipping lately," she announced. "Step down for now. Let Ethan take over your projects. You can assist him." The entire office fell silent. I had been by Victoria Vance's side since the company's inception, the cornerstone of our success and its undisputed leader. My performance had always been stellar. Yet now, out of the blue, she was telling me to step aside. And for what? To mentor some greenhorn who'd been here less than a week. I remained silent, my face a cold mask. Victoria's expression soured. "Didn't you hear me?" she demanded, her brow furrowed. A flicker of mockery crossed Ethan Thorne's eyes. He smiled. "Sincere was a co-founder with you after all. He's bound to have some pride. I doubt he's willing to be my subordinate." For a grown man, he was insufferably passive-aggressive. At his words, Victoria scoffed. "Pride? What's he got to be proud of? If it weren't for me, he never would have gotten a foot in the door with his associate's degree. All I'm doing is revoking his special privileges, and he can't handle it? Does he really think he can throw his weight around just because he's been here longer?" With those words, Victoria branded me a useless bum, an incompetent coasting on seniority. The truth was, my contributions to the company far exceeded hers. And that associate's degree? That was because of her, too. Both Victoria and I came from rural backgrounds, united by a fierce determination to make it in the city. Her family couldn't afford the steep tuition and living expenses and were pressuring her to marry for a bride price. She had cried in my arms, begging me not to let her drop out, pleading for my help. Because I loved her, I gave her my own tuition money without a second thought, dropping out of college myself. I worked grueling shifts in a cramped, grimy diner just to support her. It wasn't until 2 years ago, after our startup finally took off, that I found the time to enroll in an associate's program, with plans to get my bachelor's. But she begged me to put my education on hold, claiming the company couldn't survive without me. So to this day, all I have is an associate's degree. She knew all of this, and now she was using it as a weapon to stab me in the back. I felt the weight of strange glances from all around, disdain, contempt, doubt. I clenched my fists. As I met her cold, hard gaze, the will to argue simply evaporated. The woman frowning at me bore no resemblance to the one who had once loved me. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. I turned, walked to the printer, and printed out a single sheet of paper. My resignation. Since I only have an associate's degree, I'm clearly not qualified to work here. After all, the minimum requirement at our company is a bachelor's. Victoria was stunned, clearly not expecting this, but she quickly masked her surprise. "I don't care if this is some strategic retreat or you're just playing hard to get," she sneered. "Once you walk out that door, you're not coming back. This company isn't a revolving door." I glanced at her, my face devoid of expression. Understood. As I turned to leave, Ethan whispered something in Victoria's ear. Her face instantly changed, and she spat at me with disgust. "So that's your game. No wonder you were so willing to walk." Confused, I watched as she threw a stack of files onto the table. It was the contract I had signed a few days ago. Ethan made a tisk-tisk sound with faux sympathy. "Sincere, everyone knows you're close with Mr. Zhang from this partner company. The deal isn't finalized yet. Your sudden departure now. Isn't this just a ploy to hold the company hostage? I know you're not happy about working for a newcomer like me, but this is the CEO's decision. You can't just defy her, can you? Victoria looked mortified, her mind clearly racing with new, imagined betrayals. In the past, I would have frantically tried to explain, to assure her I wasn't trying to pull a power play. But now I just wanted to laugh. She knew perfectly well that I was the one holding the company together, but she would never admit it. She simultaneously suppressed me and exploited me. Before, I tolerated it because I loved her. Now, I just felt like a fool. I had ruined my own future for a woman, lost all my dignity, and couldn't even get the basic recognition of being her boyfriend. The rage that should have been boiling inside me was gone, replaced by a placid calm. I copied all my files from my computer onto a drive and placed it on the desk. Here are all the project details and quotes. You can use this to continue the partnership. I won't say a word to the client. I turned and walked away without another word. I could feel a burning gaze on my back, but I never looked back. The moment I stepped out of the company building, the air itself felt fresher, cleaner. I had barely a moment to relax before Victoria came chasing after me. She grabbed my sleeve, her brow knitted with blame. What's the meaning of this? You walk out after I say a few words? Weren't you the one who said you were happy to step back and let me run the company? I laughed coldly in my mind. I agreed to step into the background. Not to have you cheat on me. Not only did she stay out all night, she showed up with a Hickey next to Ethan. Then she had the audacity to make me an assistant to that clueless pretty boy. I might be devoted, but I'm not an idiot. Victoria stomped her foot in frustration. What are you talking about, cheating? You're talking nonsense. There's nothing going on between Ethan and me. Stop being so jealous. Just as I was about to retort, Ethan appeared. He walked up to me with a look of apology. I'm so sorry, sincere. I didn't realize you were quitting out of jealousy, but I was with a client last night, for the company. I got drunk, and Miss Vance was just taking care of me. There's really nothing between us. Please don't misunderstand. As he spoke, he deliberately tilted his head, revealing angry red scratches on his neck. The little punk was provoking me. The old me would have exploded, demanding Victoria promise to never see Ethan again. But after so many years, so many fights, she never changed. I had lost all desire to continue this with her. I said nothing, my face a mask of cold indifference. Victoria took the initiative, grabbing my hand. I know you're just acting out because you're jealous. I'll let it slide this once, chalk it up to you being emotional. Tonight's dinner with a client is crucial. I can't do it without you. Pull yourself together and come with me, okay? Her tone was gentle, a clear attempt to soften me up. All I felt was irony. If it weren't for this dinner, she wouldn't have bothered coming after me at all. My eyes fell on Ethan. He was wearing my shirt. It was the one Victoria had bought me for our 3rd anniversary. I cherished it, rarely ever wearing it. Now it was a wrinkled mess, reeking of smoke and alcohol. So that's where it went after I'd put it out to air dry a few days ago. Victoria had given it to this punk. Seeing the small yellowed cigarette burns on the sleeve, it suddenly hit me. Something I had treasured was being treated so carelessly. It was pathetic and laughable. My expression didn't soften. Victoria sighed. Fine. As long as you come to the dinner tonight, I won't touch your position. Is that what you want? I didn't answer. She continued, as if negotiating with herself. You're just afraid Ethan will step on your toes, aren't you? Fine, I'll satisfy you. I'll give you both the same title. Happy now? If I wasn't worried about upsetting you, Ethan would have been in management from day one. I finally looked up and met her eyes. Promote him if you want. It has nothing to do with me. Victoria's face darkened. What is that supposed to mean? I let out a dry chuckle. I already handed you my resignation. I have no connection to the company anymore. You don't need to tell me any of this. And another thing, we're breaking up. Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. What did you say? Right in front of her, I blocked her number. Does "we're breaking up" really need an explanation? Victoria gritted her teeth. You dare break up with me? Didn't you say you wanted to meet my parents? What is all this drama about now? I pointed at Ethan and sneered. Oh, you remember the plan to meet my parents? I thought you'd forgotten. How was the booze at the bar? Yesterday was the day Victoria and I had planned for over half a year, the day I was finally going to meet her parents. I had bought expensive gifts, wanting to make the best possible impression, but I sat on my sofa all day, from morning till night, and Victoria never came. Worse, I saw Ethan's smug post on social media, a picture from a bar. Victoria was snuggled in his arms, their poses intimate and shameless. I waited for her to explain, to apologize. She never did. Instead, she cast it all aside and had the gall to ask me to be Ethan's assistant. The woman was heartless. Faced with my sarcasm, Victoria showed no guilt, only rage. She pointed a finger at me. I told you the company hasn't gone public yet. We're only moderately successful. You know my parents favor my brother. We have nothing to show for ourselves. What are we supposed to get married on? But you never try to understand. You just keep pressuring me to meet them, so I went out for a drink to blow off some steam. What's wrong with that? I was so angry I laughed. Nothing's wrong with it. Do whatever you want. It has nothing to do with me anymore. Ethan dropped his previous act and stepped in front of Victoria. You're the one making malicious assumptions. The CEO and I are innocent. A clear conscience fears no accusation. Victoria looked at Ethan with gratitude, then turned back to me, her eyes full of resentment. Throw your tantrum if you want. I've said my piece. With that, she began to cry, her shoulders shaking with contrived sobs. Watching this display, I felt nothing but a faint urge to laugh. Whenever a problem arose between us, Victoria never tried to solve it. She'd win by throwing a fit. If that didn't work, she'd use tears to force me to soften. She was pulling the same trick again. But this time, I was unmoved. I turned and walked away, my expression cold. She screamed my name, absolutely livid. But I only compromise when I love. Without love, she was just a stranger to me. I cleared out everything that reminded me of her and sent a message to my best friend who was overseas. I'm in. Let's do that import-export business. I was about to catch up with him when my phone rang. Hello, is this Mr. Sterling? Your father's medical bills have been overdue for half a month. We've been trying to call you but couldn't get through. We had no choice but to stop his medication a few days ago. Your father passed away that same day. We were wondering when you would be able to come and collect the body. A violent tremor shot through me. What did you say? I asked, unable to believe it. My father was my only family in this world. A car accident years ago had left him in a coma. He was in the ICU, kept alive by a ventilator and various nutrient drips. To keep him with me, my entire salary was directly deposited from the company's finance department into an account for the hospital to draw from. How could the bills be overdue? The person on the other end repeated, The card you provided to the hospital was frozen half a month ago. We've been trying to contact you, but we couldn't reach you. I was second in command at the company. Finance had no reason to freeze my account. There was only one person who could have done this. I couldn't process the rest of what they were saying. When I came to, my phone was ringing with an unknown number. I answered in a daze. It was Victoria, her voice smug and triumphant. Did the hospital call you? If you don't come back and apologize, I'll keep your account frozen. A pain so sharp it was unbearable pierced my heart. I trembled as I asked, You froze my bank account? Who else could it be? Why did you have to fight me on hiring Ethan 2 weeks ago? I'm the one in charge of this company. Don't you ever think you can dictate my decisions. Now get back here immediately. A Mr. Hayes from an overseas firm has specifically requested to see you. If we lose this partnership, I'm holding you responsible. My hands clenched into fists so tight my knuckles turned white. I swore she would pay for this. Numbly, I made my way to the hospital. I arranged for my father's cremation and burial alone. The strong, imposing father of my memory was now just a cold, silent tombstone. I walked back into the company, my face a mask of frost. Victoria, however, thought I was just having a prolonged tantrum. She smiled dismissively. I knew you'd be back. Don't ever joke about quitting again. Next time I'll have you starting from the mailroom. Ethan shot me a resentful glare and stiffly handed me a file. This is the proposal for the meeting. A single glance was enough to see several glaring holes in it. He dared to show off this garbage. I didn't even give it a second look and walked straight into the conference room. Victoria and Ethan followed close behind, chattering about negotiation tactics, urging me to secure the best possible terms. I let out a cold laugh and slapped the shareholder separation agreement on the table. Victoria's eyes went cold. She gritted her teeth. What is the meaning of this? I worked my ass off with you for years to build this company. It's partly mine, I said calmly. We were in a relationship, so I never made an issue of it. But we're broken up now. It's time to settle the score. Ethan's eyes darkened. He fanned the flames. Sincere can't possibly think he can hold the company hostage just because Mr. Hayes is here, can he? Rage boiled in Victoria's eyes. She slammed her hand on the table. You never brought this up before now. When you know I need you, you suddenly demand your shares. You think you can blackmail me? I don't care, I can do without this deal. I pushed the agreement towards her. Whether you give it to me or not isn't up to you. I have enough evidence to win this in court. Signing now will save you a lot of trouble. I had the leverage and the proof. Victoria knew it, but she was stubborn. Go ahead, sue me. You think I'm afraid of you? Ethan, riding on her coattails, stood beside her. Since you have no intention of serving the company, we won't keep you. We can land the deal with Mr. Hayes without you. I smiled. Do you two even know who Mr. Hayes is? Victoria rolled her eyes at me. Cameron Hayes. Turned $2 million into a multi-$100 million empire, made the Forbes list in 2 years. You think I don't know? Just then, the CEO's assistant popped in. Mr. Hayes is here. Victoria turned and lifted her chin at me. None of this has anything to do with you anymore. You want the shares? Fine. You want to break up? Fine. Don't you dare come crawling back to me. I'll land this deal without you with that. She snatched a pen, signed the shareholder agreement, and yelled, Security, get this non-employee out of here. I held up a hand and smiled calmly. No need. I can see myself out. As I turned, I came face to face with Mr. Hayes, who was walking in, surrounded by his entourage. Victoria and Ethan immediately plastered on smiles and rushed forward. But Cameron Hayes ignored them completely, walked straight to me, and pulled me into a bear hug. I've missed you, buddy. Victoria froze, her smile strained. Mr. Hayes, I thought we were here to discuss the partnership? Ethan was already dumbstruck, never imagining I could be so familiar with the famous Cameron Hayes. Cam paid them no mind, asking me warmly, Didn't you tell me your girlfriend worked at this company? We've been best friends since we were kids, and you refused to go abroad with me because of her. I had to come see this woman who could keep you from me. I chuckled. We broke up a while ago. Victoria went rigid. Mr. Hayes, she asked in disbelief, you and he are childhood friends? Cameron Hayes looked at her as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Of course. Why would I lie to you about that? When Victoria and Ethan were mocking me earlier, they hadn't bothered to lower their voices. Cam had clearly heard everything and was now sticking up for me. After weeks of betrayal and pain, my best friend's loyalty was a warmth that spread through my chest. Ethan, unwilling to see me in the spotlight, mustered his courage. Mr. Hayes, please take a look at the proposal we've drafted. Since you're here, shall we get started? Victoria also looked at Cameron hopefully. I stood aside, smiling silently. Cameron met my gaze, then smiled back at Ethan. Sure. Let's see the proposal. Anyone could see the smile didn't reach his eyes. But Ethan thought he was making progress, his expression seeming to say, see, your relationship isn't so special after all. He shot me a provocative glance. Mr. Hayes, to be honest, Sincere here was actually fired by our CEO due to his substandard professional abilities. It might be best if we discuss the partnership without any irrelevant personnel present, don't you think? Cameron's face hardened. Substandard professional abilities? Victoria sensed trouble and tried to stop Ethan, but he was too quick. Yes, and not only that, he's overambitious. Our CEO was willing to give him another chance, but he looked down on it and insisted on quitting before he could finish. Cameron began to applaud slowly. Bravo, just bravo. I had no idea a non-public company like yours had such high standards. With Sincere's capabilities, it would be an insult to him to be a general manager at my company. And here you are, calling him incompetent. The smile froze on Ethan's face. Victoria immediately jumped in front of him. Mr. Hayes, please don't mind him. Ethan is new to the company and unfamiliar with many things. He was just talking nonsense. I'll have him apologize to you later. Cameron let out a cold laugh. You bring someone unfamiliar with the company to negotiate a partnership with me? That's rather insulting. In that case, I see no need to continue this discussion. Victoria lowered her gaze, forcing a smile. Of course not. We hold you in the highest regard. We would never be disrespectful. The brain cells that had abandoned Ethan finally returned. He bowed a full 90 degrees to me. I'm sorry, Sincere. I was talking nonsense just now. I was out of line. Victoria also chimed in with a placating smile. Just moments ago they were arrogantly spouting nonsense at me. Now they were groveling for my forgiveness. The irony was thick. I nodded, accepting his apology. Not because I forgave him, but for the sheer humiliation of it. We returned to the conference room. As if to redeem himself, Ethan stopped his snide remarks and began presenting the proposal seriously. He spoke with such grandiosity that he almost sounded convincing. Even Victoria watched him with admiration, clearly pleased. But I glanced at Cameron and saw the faint, cold smile on his lips as he toyed with the ring on his thumb. It was a telltale sign of his impatience. The proposal Victoria and Ethan had slaved over for days was decent, but it was merely competent, lacking any real spark, good enough only to fool an amateur. But Cameron had started from the ground up. He knew everything from the project's entry angles to the cost of every material. To impress Victoria, Ethan had inflated the price of every item, significantly driving up the costs. If I could see it at a glance, there was no way Cameron couldn't. But he said nothing, not until Ethan got more and more excited, misusing technical terms and mixing up concepts. Cameron could no longer stand it. He tossed the proposal onto the table. If this is your company's idea of sincerity, then I don't think there's any need for a partnership. Victoria shot to her feet. Mr. Hayes, wait, is there a problem? Ethan glared at me with hatred, demanding, Mr. Hayes, did someone say something to you behind our backs? That malicious accusation made Cameron's face turn to ice. Don't blame the world for your own incompetence. You'd be better off spending your time reading a few books to grow a brain. Cameron's words were merciless, borderline humiliating, but Ethan didn't dare say a word. My own eyes were cold. If I wanted to do something to you, I would do it openly. Even with my grudge, I wouldn't ask Cameron to pass on a profitable project. But some people just can't hold on to good fortune, and they love to blame others for their failures. Cameron turned to Victoria. Miss Vance, I hope you're not mistaking fish eyes for pearls. It'll be too late to cry when you're losing money. Ethan still wanted to argue, but Victoria, now annoyed, shot him a glare. That's enough. I thought that would be enough for Victoria to see Ethan for the incompetent poser he was. But he just mumbled some excuse about being nervous and losing his composure for a moment, and she immediately forgave him. One was willing to be fooled, the other was a willing fool. There was nothing more for me to say. I could only wish them a long and miserable future together. I stood by Cameron's side and we walked away with a flourish. They thought they had just lost a deal. They had no idea. This was just the beginning. Perhaps to prove herself, Victoria actually approved Ethan's proposal to hire celebrities and influencers for a major ad campaign, but the company wasn't public yet. It didn't have that kind of capital. The celebrity effect might provide a short-term boost, but it was unsustainable. I, of course, didn't warn them. Instead, at the peak of their product's popularity, I sold off all my shares, getting a massive influx of cash. With that money, Cameron and I started a new company together. When Victoria found out, she called me specifically to mock me. If you were smart, you would have just held on to your shares and collected the dividends. But your vision is too limited. This is as far as you'll ever go. I chuckled. Is that so? She sneered. I bought back every share you sold. I'm still the largest shareholder. You have absolutely no connection to this company anymore. Don't you dare come begging. I looked at the long string of zeros in my bank account. You used all your cash flow to buy back shares. What about the company? There was a pause on the other end. You might want to check the news, I suggested helpfully. She didn't understand, but a few seconds later, a shrill shriek erupted from the phone. Sincere Sterling, how dare you? I hung up and leisurely scrolled through my phone. I'm not one for sneaky tricks. I prefer to be direct. Just like now, I had just leaked evidence that Victoria's company's products had been failing quality checks for years, along with proof of tax evasion. The celebrities and influencers who had endorsed them were all terminating their contracts and demanding huge compensation packages. Victoria's company plummeted. The stock that had been soaring dropped over 20 points. If she hadn't bought my shares at an inflated price, she might have had a chance to salvage the situation. But her greed was her downfall. She was out of the game. Now, finally, she was scared. She tried to contact me several times, begging me to stop. But every time I thought of my father's death, the hatred in my heart would swell. I ignored her calls, blocking each new number she used. At the height of the media frenzy, I leaked the story of my 6-year relationship with her. Knock, 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 someone was at my door. Through the peephole, I saw it was Victoria. She was a world away from the glamorous, designer-clad CEO I had last seen. Now, even under a layer of exquisite makeup, her exhaustion was palpable. When I didn't open the door, she raised her hand to knock again. I finally pulled the door open. The moment she saw me, tears of grievance streamed down her face. Are you satisfied now? You've completely destroyed my company. She tried to throw herself into my arms. I sidestepped her. Victoria looked at me in disbelief. You went to all this trouble to ruin my company just to prove that I can't live without you. Well, I'm here now. Why are you pretending? Her astounding confidence almost made me laugh. I looked at her with scorn. What makes you think I would ever want a woman who cheated on me and stabbed me in the back? Victoria bit her lip, then yelled in a rage, I told you it's not what you think between Ethan and me. Nothing happened that night. I let out a dry laugh. Betrayal isn't just physical. Emotional affairs count too. Ever since Ethan returned, she had not only given him special privileges at work, but had also constantly abandoned me for him in our private life. Anniversaries, the time I had a sudden stomach illness, it didn't matter. A single casual word from Ethan, and she would drop everything for him. My love for her had been eroded away by her repeated transgressions. Seeing my cold demeanor, Victoria tentatively tugged at the corner of my shirt. Why else would you suddenly reveal our relationship if you didn't still love me? You're just trying to play the hero, to force me into marrying you, aren't you? Her voice grew more certain. I admit I embarrassed you. I'm willing to make it up to you. Whether it's marriage or hiring you back at the company, I'm willing. If you're really that angry, I can fire Ethan, she declared, as if making a huge concession, her jaw tight and her eyes welling with tears. But she was only willing to fire Ethan because her company was ruined. She wanted to lure me back, to put me back to work as her loyal mule. The moment I agreed and she was back on top, I would be the first person she'd discard. I laughed so hard, tears almost came to my eyes. Has it ever occurred to you that I revealed our relationship to grind you even further into the dirt? Victoria froze. What? I opened my phone and held it in front of her face. CEO Victoria Vance dumps secret boyfriend of 6 years for new lover. Failure of the pretty boy trending. Ethan Thorne's plagiarized thesis. And academic fraud. Victoria Vance can't tell a pearl from a fisheye. The comment sections were flooded with people calling her fickle, unfaithful, and a terrible judge of character. Victoria trembled with rage. What do you want? Do you really want to drag us both down into mutual destruction? What did I do wrong? Why are you doing this to me? She shrieked, as if I were the one who had committed some unforgivable crime. But she was the one who was wrong, not me, I nodded. What did you do wrong? I'll tell you, I grabbed her by the neck and dragged her into the living room. Hanging in the center of the wall was my father's memorial portrait. Her pupils contracted violently. She looked back at me, her voice trembling. Isn't your dad in the hospital? Why do you have a memorial picture? I slapped her across the face hard. Stop playing the innocent. You knew my dad couldn't live without that ventilator. Not only did you stop finance from depositing my salary, you froze my account if I hadn't checked. At the hospital myself, I never would have known you changed the emergency contact number for my father's file. You killed my dad. Seeing my frenzied state, she finally felt fear. She shook her head wildly, denying it. No, I didn't know. I thought stopping the payments for a little while wouldn't matter. Your dad was just lying in the hospital. I didn't mean to. I never wanted to kill him. If you hadn't been fighting with me back then, I wouldn't have done something like that in a fit of anger. Even now, not a single word of remorse. Just endless excuses. I hated myself for being so blind, for loving this heartless viper for so many years. Tears streamed down my face against my will. Victoria looked at me, terrified, sincere. Don't be like this, you're scaring me. I clenched my fists. You're scared now? When my dad was lying in that hospital bed waiting to die, did you ever think about whether he was scared? If it weren't for you, how could the hospital not reach me? I never even got to see him. One last time I dragged Victoria to my car, slammed the accelerator to the floor, and sped all the way to the cemetery. The cold wind whipped around us. Victoria was a mess, her face streaked with tears, sobbing that she knew she was wrong. But I just gripped her hand, saying nothing, until we reached my father's grave. My icy gaze fell upon her. Do I need to do it for you? At this point, she finally understood that crying was useless. With a thud, she fell to her knees and began to kowtow heavily, slamming her forehead against the ground. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I killed you. I'm sorry, She kept stealing glances at me, but I remained silent. I felt no pity, even as her forehead started to bleed. Even if she died right here, the father who raised me would never come back. I didn't speak, so she didn't dare to get up. Only when she was nearly unconscious from the repeated impacts did I turn and walk away, my face a mask of indifference. Looking up at the gray sky, my heart was a block of ice. I wasn't finished, because I had found out that it was Ethan's idea for Victoria to freeze my bank account. He was also an executioner in my father's death. A poser as overambitious as him was easy to trap. A little setup was all it took. He not only betrayed Victoria but also made off with a large sum of her money and fled the country. Although Victoria's company was bankrupt, a starved camel is still bigger than a horse. He had managed to swindle several million from her. When she was at her lowest, her old flame, her beloved, was of no use. Victoria, furious, reported him to the police and camped out at his family's house every day. But he was prepared, having already taken his entire family abroad. I played the long game. I used a small gambling ring to lure him in, get him hooked, and then, in one fell swoop, I emptied his accounts. Ethan stared at his zero balance, completely stunned. But that wasn't enough. I tipped off the domestic police about Ethan's whereabouts. A fugitive with such a large sum involved, any lead would be pursued. Less than half a month later, Ethan was extradited back to the country. With no money to pay back, prison was his only option. I donated all the money I'd taken from Ethan to an orphanage, a small contribution to society. I was the one who had built Victoria up. Ethan stealing her last bit of money was a fitting way to bring her back to square one. A few years later, her parents, who had always favored their son, were forcing her to marry a coal baron in exchange for a hefty bride price. Cameron asked if I felt sorry for her. I just scoffed. It has nothing to do with me. She had once cried to me, begging for help, saying she didn't want to be married off for money. I helped her, and she betrayed me. It just proved she was a venomous snake you could never tame. How could I possibly feel pity for her again? Just as I said that, Victoria appeared before me. She was wearing the same white dress she wore when we first met, looking haggard and panicked. Save me, the scene before me overlapped with my memories. I looked at her coldly, feeling like I was stuck with a piece of gum I couldn't scrape off. Tears of regret streamed down her face. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so close to Ethan. I'm the one who hurt you. I'm willing to spend my whole life atoning for it. You haven't found another girlfriend. I know you can't forget me. Please give me one more chance. I'll treat you right, I swear. As if afraid I wouldn't believe her, she raised her hand to make an oath. But suddenly, a 2-year-old girl ran out and called to me sweetly. Daddy. Victoria stared in disbelief. This is your daughter? The little girl made a face at her. Hey, Grandma, you should stay away from my daddy. My mommy will get jealous. Victoria swayed on her feet, looking like she was about to faint. Before I could speak, a graceful, stunningly beautiful woman wrapped her arm around mine and pouted playfully. The little one and I have been waiting for you. Weren't we going to dinner? What's taking so long? Then she looked over at Victoria. Victoria stood there in her worn-out white dress, without a single piece of jewelry. Even her once proud beauty was marred by fine lines. The contrast between the two women was stark. A look of deep insecurity crept over Victoria's face, but she still asked, unwilling to give up, "Is this your wife and child?" Cameron coughed lightly. I turned to Victoria and said yes. At that, Victoria's legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the ground. I turned, picked up the child, and walked into the hotel. Victoria scrambled to her feet and tried to follow, but she was stopped by security. Before she could make a scene, her parents rushed over, cursing her for being a dead loss, a disappointment who didn't know how good she had it, and telling her to hurry home so they could collect the bride price. Inside the private dining room, the little girl had already jumped into Cameron's arms. "Daddy, was I good just now?" Cameron patted her head gently. "You and Mommy both did great. You really saved Uncle Sincere's face watching the three of them. So happy and harmonious, I felt a genuine sense of joy for them." Cameron couldn't stand seeing me alone and insisted on setting me up. Worn down by his persistence, I finally agreed. To my surprise, after a few dates, we actually hit it off. Many years later, I was out shopping with my wife and child when I saw a destitute old woman. She was holding a large rack of candied fruit skewers. Shouting $2 a stick, her own child was whining and screaming, demanding the new Globephone 38, yelling that if she was too poor to buy it, she shouldn't have had him. As I passed her, she pretended not to recognize me, but tears streamed uncontrollably down her face. I didn't even see her. My eyes were only on my family. The end.